Welcome to NewsTrack YouTube channel. In today's video, we share the latest updates on celebrities who sadly passed away today. We remember their lives, achievements, and the impact they had on fans around the world. Our thoughts go out to their families and loved ones during this difficult time. Stay updated with real-time news on celebrity deaths and tributes from the entertainment industry. Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock has always been a light in the world of film, a rare blend of charm, strength, vulnerability, and authenticity. From Speed to The Blind Side, from Gravity to her quiet personal battles, she has carried herself with unwavering grace. But now, away from the camera and the red carpets, a deeper and more personal struggle has taken hold. Her health is very poor, and behind closed doors, those closest to her are facing the growing fear that the risks may soon become greater than ever before. For years, Sandra has given so much, on-screen and off. She made us laugh when we needed laughter most. She portrayed strength when the world seemed broken. She's been a mother, a friend, a quiet force for good, even as the public eye watched her every step. But illness does not care for fame or past triumphs. It arrives quietly and steals energy, time, and comfort. And now, Sandra is in a place where even simple days come with effort and pain. She has always chosen to keep her private life guarded, and now more than ever, that boundary holds strong. But through the silence, love pours in from around the world, from fans, friends, and those who felt seen and inspired by her. This is a moment of reflection, of remembering the warmth and hope she brought into our lives. Sandra Bullock is more than an actress. She is a symbol of resilience, of compassion, of unwavering dignity. And though her days may now be marked by fragility, her legacy is one of strength. As her health continues to challenge her, we hold her in our thoughts. We send her the same love she's so often given us, quiet, constant, unconditional. And we pray that, in whatever time remains. Tommy Vigorito. Tommy Vigorito dies at 65. Former Miami Dolphins tailback Tommy Vigorito passed away earlier Tuesday, according to a post made by his former high school. Vigorito, who was best known as a small tailback who primarily handled punt return duties for the Dolphins from 1981 to 1985, died at the age of 65. Vigorito, a high school parade All-American at DePaul Catholic High School in Passaic, New Jersey, was drafted by the Dolphins in the 5th round of the 1981 draft out of the University of Virginia. Miami acquired the draft pick they used to select Vigorito, who finished his career as Virginia's second all-time leading rusher with 2,912 yards, from Philadelphia after sending third-year tailback Leroy Harris to the Eagles. For his career, Vigorito contributed 79 punt returns for 830 yards and scored 2 touchdowns for the Dolphins. He also had 59 receptions for 439 yards, 7.4 per catch, and scored 2 receiving touchdowns, along with gaining 215 rushing yards and a pair of touchdowns on the ground. Vigorito became a fan favorite because of his limited size, 5'10", 193 pounds, and his no-fear attitude on returns. His career was cut short when he tore his right anterior cruciate ligament, ACL, in the 1983 season opener. That was during an era before ACL surgeries were perfected. Therefore, the rehab wasn't always successful. Vigorito missed the entire 1984 but returned in '85. But by then, Miami had added receivers Mark Duper and Mark Clayton, and tailback Lorenzo Hampton, a first-round pick in 1985, who all inherited his role in his absence. Rich Rollins. Rich Rollins dies at 87. Rich Rollins, whose 10-year Major League Baseball career was highlighted by 2 All-Star Game appearances and playing in the 1965 World Series with the Twins, passed away on Tuesday. He was 87. Rollins, a native of Pennsylvania, was a 3-time selection for the All-Mid-American Conference team as a second baseman and had a .383 career batting average while playing for Kent State. After graduating in June 1960, he signed with the Washington Senators. He began his professional career with Wilson NC of the Class B Carolina League and hit .341 in 62 games. Rollins started the 1961 season with Class AAA Syracuse of the International League, but after just 1 at-bat in 3 weeks, he was sent to Charlotte of the Class A Sally League. While with Charlotte, where he hit .270 in 36 games, he was moved to third base. He was recalled the Twins, who were in their first season in Minnesota in mid-June and made his debut on June 16th. Rollins hit .294 in 13 games for the Twins. In 1962, he hit .298 with 16 home runs and 96 RBI in 159 games for the Twins. He was named an All-Star twice and played in both All-Star games. MLB had 2 All-Star games from 1959 to 1962. Following the season, in a vote by his teammates, he was named the Twins' most valuable player. Following the 1968 season, Rollins was selected by the Seattle Pilots in the expansion draft. He hit .225 in 58 games for the Pilots in 1969. He split the 1970 season with the Milwaukee Brewers, who had relocated from Seattle, and Cleveland, batting .221 in 56 games. He was released by Cleveland following the season, and he retired. Derek Hallis. Leeds Rhinos mourn passing of championship winner Derek Hallis. Leeds Rhinos are mourning a key figure in one of the club's greatest teams, who also played in Australia for Parramatta and had a spell as coach at Halifax. Derek Hallis, who was in his 90s, scored 2 tries when Leeds beat Warrington in the 1961 championship final to be crowned rugby league champions for the first time. In total, he touched down 60 times and kicked 18 goals in 135 games for Leeds from 1959 to 62. The historic 1960-61 season, when Leeds finally secured the championship trophy after 70 years of trying, was also Hallis's finest for the club. He touched down 21 times in 41 games as part of a lethal combination with South African winger Wilf Rosenberg, who scored a post-war record 44 tries. Between them, Leeds' right side three-quarters totaled more than a third of the team's tries that season. Hallis later spent 5 seasons as a player in Australia with Parramatta. Back in England, he had a season as coach of Halifax and returned to Leeds as a scout and then secretary of the club's Past Players Association. Richard Garwin. Richard Garwin dies at 97. Richard L. Garwin, a designer of the first hydrogen bomb, died Tuesday. His daughter-in-law, Tabitha Garwin, confirmed to CBS News. The renowned scientist was 97 years old. A prominent scientist who advised several U.S. presidents, Garwin made contributions in nuclear weapons, physics, and in military technology, among many other areas. He published more than 500 papers and was granted 47 U.S. patents, according to the Garwin Archive maintained by the Federation of American Scientists. He was just 23 years old when he designed the first working hydrogen bomb, according to a profile written in IEEE Spectrum magazine. It was detonated in a test codenamed Ivy Mike at Innu-Tek Atoll in November 1952, yielding 10.4 megatons of TNT, the measurement that quantifies the force of nuclear weapons. Garwin's role had been largely unknown outside of a small circle of physicists, mathematicians, and engineers at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, who were involved with the project until 2001, the profile said. In 2016, former President Obama awarded Garwin the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his scientific work. In the citation, Mr. Obama said Garwin made pioneering contributions to U.S. defense and intelligence technologies. Garwin was honored with the National Medal of Science in 2002 and was awarded the Vannevar Bush Award in 2023, which honors exceptional lifelong leaders in science and technology. Richard Garwin is truly remarkable, Dario Gil, chair of the board's External Engagement Committee, said in a statement. His continuing contributions to society, both as a scientific researcher and presidential advisor, help bolster national security and improve international collaboration. Bobby Franklin. Bobby Franklin dies at 88. Former Ole Miss football quarterback Bobby Franklin, who was the MVP in 2 bowl games for the Rebels, died on May 13th. He was 88. Franklin had many football accomplishments as both a player and coach. He earned a scholarship to Ole Miss in 1956 after being a 4-sport athlete at Clarksdale High School. Franklin played quarterback for the Rebels from 1956 to 60. He led Ole Miss to 3 consecutive bowl appearances. Franklin earned MVP honors in the 1958 Gator Bowl. He was also the MVP in the 1960 Sugar Bowl. Franklin led the Rebels to a 21-0 win over LSU in that Sugar Bowl game. He threw 2 touchdown passes in a 21-0 victory. He was inducted into the Ole Miss Athletic Hall of Fame in 1988. The Cleveland Browns selected Franklin in the 11th round of the 1960 NFL Draft. He played 7 seasons for the Browns. He played defensive back and returned kickoffs in the NFL, making 13 interceptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Franklin coached the Northwest Community College Rangers from 1981 to 2005. The Rangers had 25 consecutive winning seasons under Franklin. He won 6 MACJC state championships and the junior college national title in 1982 and 1992. The field is named after Franklin. After his NFL career, Franklin was the defensive backs coach at Georgia Tech, 1967-68. Franklin made the move to the NFL and joined Tom Landry's staff as defensive backs coach from 1968 to 71 and special teams coach in 1972, appearing in Super Bowl V and Super Bowl VI. In 1973, he joined the Baltimore Colts and coached the defensive secondary. Franklin also has been inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame, Northwest Sports Hall of Fame, National Junior College Athletic Association Hall of Fame. Meryl Streep. Where is Meryl Streep's wedding ring from Don Gummer? After first crossing paths in 1978, Meryl Streep married Don Gummer that same year in a garden ceremony at the actress's parents' home. The two then embarked on a decades-long marriage. Over the course of 40 years, they became the parents to 4 children, Gracie, Mamie, Henry, and Louisa, and made countless appearances at events together. Much of their time was spent in Connecticut, where they purchased a farm in 1985. That was the place where they decided to raise their 4 children. Years later, after their youngest moved out of the house, the couple relocated to a loft in New York. It's clear that, for many years, their marriage was a strong one. When asked about the secret to a healthy relationship in 2002, Streep said goodwill and willingness to bend and to shut up every once in a while, according to Vogue. There's no roadmap on how to raise a family. It's always an enormous negotiation, she told the magazine. But I have a holistic need to work and to have huge ties of love in my life. I can't imagine eschewing one for the other. However, in 2018, Streep and Gummer quietly split, and the actress eventually relocated to California. After publicly announcing their separation in 2023, much speculation arose about the location of the wedding ring Meryl Streep wore for decades. Below, we break down the likely whereabouts of the jewelry piece. Where is Meryl Streep's wedding ring from Don Gummer? It's likely that the actress is still in possession of her gold wedding band from Don Gummer. Even though the couple decided to part ways in 2018, their separation wasn't publicly announced until 2023, and that same year. Christopher S. Bond. Christopher S. Bond dies at 86. Christopher Kit Bond, a Republican who brought billions of dollars in federal funding to Missouri during his 4 terms in the U.S. Senate, and who was state's the youngest person to be governor, died Tuesday. He was 86. Bond's family told Governor Mike Kehoe's office that Bond had died in St. Louis, but it didn't disclose the cause. Gabby Picard, a spokesperson for the governor, said in an email, Kehoe ordered flags flown at half-staff for the man he described as a, quote, skilled statesman. Jason Van Eaton, Bond's former deputy chief of staff, told the Associated Press that his former boss's death marked the end of an era. The lasting legacy of Kit Bond will be the thousands of people that he inspired, he said. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri described Bond as a, quote, champion for Missouri in a message on X. Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent of Missouri praised Bond's relentless and penetrating intelligence in a statement. As a member of the powerful Senate Appropriations Committee, Bond secured federal money for big and small projects in Missouri, scoffing at government watchdog groups that considered him a master of pork barrel spending. If it's pork, it's an awfully healthy diet for the people of Missouri, Bond said in 1999. Early in his career, Bond was considered a political wunderkind. When he took office at age 33 as Missouri's youngest governor, he was also the state's first Republican chief executive in about 3 decades, and garnered consideration as a vice presidential candidate. His early success stalled when he lost a re-election bid, but he later rebounded to win another term as governor before being elected to the Senate in 1986. Cornel Hendricks. Cornel Hendricks dies at 37. Former South African international rugby player Cornel Hendricks has passed away at the age of 37 after suffering a heart attack on Wednesday evening, SA Rugby confirmed in a statement. Hendricks, who made his Test debut for the Springboks against Wales in 2014, earned 12 caps for the national team. His promising career was initially cut short in 2015 after he was diagnosed with a serious heart condition, prompting his retirement from professional rugby. However, following a second medical opinion, Hendricks made a remarkable return to the sport in 2019, joining the Pretoria-based Bulls in Super Rugby. Over the course of a 17-year career, he played in 233 first-class matches. Bulls director of rugby Jake White paid tribute to Hendricks, calling him a true legend of the game. Many people were shocked and sad when his career was cut short in 2015, Jake White said. When we had the opportunity to get him back on the park, he took that with open arms and made a remarkable use of his second lease in professional rugby. We all witnessed him leave no stone unturned as he inspired his teammates and the South African community through his story of hope and courage. Rugby has lost one of the good ones, he added. SA Rugby president Mark Alexander also expressed his sorrow, describing Hendricks as a player who embodied the spirit of the game. Cornel was one of those players who loved the game and he worked extremely hard, but he always did so with a smile on his face, treating all people with respect, Alexander said. His energy and love of life, on and off the field, lifted his teammates and those around him. Daniel Bilalian. Daniel Bilalian died at 78. A career spanning more than 40 years in public television. Born in Paris on April 10, 1947, to an Armenian father and a mother from Pas-de-Calais, Daniel Bilalian has influenced several generations of television viewers. He began his journalistic career in 1968 at the regional daily The Union in Reims. In 1971, he joined the ORTF at the Regional Information Office in Reims, then that of Lille in 1972. Very quickly, he joined Two Antenna, created in 1975, where he became an essential face of information. There, he successively held the positions of great reporter, presenter, editor-in-chief, producer. Bilalian presents in particular the 13 p.m. and 20 p.m. news broadcasts in the 1980s and 1990s. He is also the author and producer of several television magazine programs, including Star at the Helm at Tuesday evening. During his career, he held the 20 o'clock news anchor position several times, notably between 1995 and 1998, before being replaced by Claude Sarayon and then David Pujadas. A notable stint at the head of the sports department. In 2004, Marc Tessier, then president of France Télévisions, appointed him director of sports for the group. He remained there until 2016. Under his leadership, France Télévisions consolidated its position as the historic broadcaster of Tour de France, Six Nations Tournament, and Roland Garros, among others. However, his management is sometimes criticized. Several journalists, including Pierre Salviac and Lionel Chamelot, will evoke internal tensions. In 2012, Bilalian justified staff reductions by a necessary budgetary adaptation of the public audiovisual service. He finally left his post in 2016, a few months before his 70th birthday. Clint Eastwood. The star Clint Eastwood called the most prepared actress he's ever worked with. To be considered an icon in Hollywood, you usually need to be proficient in at least one outstanding skill. However, some artists can go the extra mile and become legendary in two. Alongside his prolific acting career, starring in many acclaimed westerns and thrillers, Clint Eastwood has also directed countless movies, making him one of the industry's hardest-working filmmakers. Following his star-making turn in the Dollars trilogy, he made his directorial debut in 1971 with Play Misty for Me. The film marked the start of a long directing career, which subsequently included titles such as High Plains Drifter and Bronco Billy. Throughout the years, he's continued to make a significant dent on the film industry with movies like Unforgiven, The Bridges of Madison County, $1 Million Baby, Invictus, and American Sniper. Often working in the crime and thriller genres, he made Changeling in 2008 with Angelina Jolie in the starring role. Written by J. Michael Straczynski, who also created Babylon 5 and Sense8, the film is perhaps one of Eastwood's most emotional directorial outputs. The movie follows a woman who is reunited with her missing son, only to discover that he is not the same child. Despite her insistence that she has been given the wrong boy, she is quickly viewed as crazy and sent to a psychiatric hospital. Set in the late 20s, the film digs into themes not typically associated with Eastwood, whose movies are often set in rather macho worlds, with the director exploring how women during this time were often failed by authorities and not taken seriously. Glenn Rogers. Florida executes suspected serial killer once eyed for possible link to the O.J. Simpson case. A suspected serial killer, once scrutinized for a possible link to the O.J. Simpson case that riveted the nation in the 1990s, was executed Thursday in Florida for the murder of a woman found dead in a Tampa motel room. Glenn Rogers, 62, received a lethal injection at Florida State Prison near Starkey and was pronounced dead at 6:16 p.m., authorities said. He was convicted in Florida of the 1995 murder of Tina Marie Cribbs, a 34-year-old mother of two he had met at a bar. He also had drawn a separate death sentence in California for the 1995 strangulation killing of Sandra Gallagher, a mother of three whom he had met at a bar in Van Nuys in that state. That killing came weeks before the Cribbs murder. Rogers was stopped after a highway chase in Kentucky while driving Cribbs' car soon after her death. In a final statement, Rogers thanked his wife, who visited him earlier in the day at the prison, according to visitor logs. He also somewhat cryptically said that in the near future, your questions will be answered, without going into detail. He also said, "President Trump, keep making America great. I'm ready to go." Then the lethal injection began, and he lay quietly through the procedure. The entire execution took just 16 minutes. Once it began, Rogers hardly moved, only lying still with his mouth slightly open. At one point, a staff member grasped him by the shoulders, shook him, and yelled, "Rogers, Rogers," to see if he was conscious. No family members of the Florida victim spoke to the press afterwards. Rogers was named as a suspect, but never convicted in several other slayings around the country. Junior Byles. Junior Byles died at 76. Reggae star Junior Byles, famed for hits including Curly Locks and Fade Away, has died. It has been confirmed. The singer passed away at Kingston Public Hospital on Thursday, May 15th, at the age of 76. Byles rose to fame in the early 70s, with his brand of Rasta-inspired rag coming to the fore. In 2023, some of his music was revisited by guitarist Earl Chinna Smith and his Bengistra movement for the album Still Beating Down Babylon. A host of big names in the genre and beyond paid tribute, including Freddie McGregor, Michael Rose, Chiny Kiki, and Little Nate from Israel. Born Kenneth Byles Jr. in Kingston, Jamaica, Byles was a firefighter while performing as a member of the Versatiles in the late 60s. In the early 70s, he recorded his own material alongside legendary producer Lee Scratch Perry, including Beat Down Babylon and Curly Locks. However, his promising career was affected by mental illness, with reports he was often found roaming the streets and had benefited from financial assistance from fellow artistes, including Bounty Killer. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in the late 2010s, and in early 2019, a benefit concert celebrating his music was held to help, as well as a large cash donation to Byles from the charity foundation of dancehall artist Bounty Killer in 2020. Sheik Bates. Sheik Bates dies at 75. Sheik Bates, a cherished icon in English football and the former manager of Stoke City, has sadly passed away at the age of 75. The football community is in mourning, remembering a man whose influence on the game was profound and lasting. Bates was a key architect in the rebirth of Stoke City during the early 1990s, serving as the indispensable right-hand man to Lou Macari. Together, they navigated the club through its darkest hours, only to triumph magnificently with the Autoglass Trophy at the iconic Wembley Stadium in 1992. The following year, Stoke roared through Division Two, leaving rivals trailing as they claimed the championship crown in a stunning turnaround that had fans on their feet. The dynamic duo took their talents briefly to Celtic, but the lure of Stoke was too strong, and they returned in 1995. The pair orchestrated a thrilling campaign that saw Stoke reach the Division 1 playoffs in 1996, but their dreams were dashed with a heartbreaking semi-final loss to Leicester City. When McCurry departed, Bates was the natural choice to helm the team during its historic transition from the beloved Victoria Ground to the shiny new Britannia Stadium. Although his stint as manager was short and fraught with challenges, Bates' passion for the club never waned. He continued to lend his expertise under the stewardship of Chris Kamara and Alan Durbin, before eventually moving on to new pastures. Bates' footballing legacy is also immortalized at Shrewsbury Town, where he dazzled as a striker in the 70s and 80s. Returning as a coach, he faithfully served the club until hanging up his boots in 2004. His exceptional contributions earned him an honored spot in Shrewsbury's Hall of Fame. Charles Strauss. Charles Strauss dies at 96. The composer Charles Strauss, a three-time Tony Award winner whose hits included Annie, has died at the age of 96. His death at home in New York on Thursday was announced by his 4 children. Over the course of a long and illustrious career, Strauss composed music for the Broadway shows Bye Bye Birdie, Golden Boy, Applause, Rags, and Nick and Nora. But he was perhaps best known for his score for Annie, which opened in New York in 1977 and ran for almost 6 years. The story of the plucky red-headed orphan featured evergreen songs, with lyrics by Martin Charnin, including Tomorrow, You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, and It's the Hard Knock Life, which was sampled by Jay-Z in a 1998 single. Annie received 7 Tony Awards, including Best Musical and Best Original Score, and won the Grammy for Best Cast Show Album. It was adapted as a film in 1982. Strauss's other Tony Award winners were the 1960 comedy Bye Bye Birdie and 1970's Applause, based on the film All About Eve. Both shows had lyrics by his regular collaborator Lee Adams. In 1996, the pair won a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Original Music and Lyrics for the song Let's Settle Down from a TV film adaptation of Bye Bye Birdie, which follows a rock and roll singer drafted into the Army. Strauss was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1985. He also worked in film, incorporating banjos into the score for Bonnie and Clyde, and television, writing the theme music for the long-running sitcom All in the Family. Pop songs, including the hit Born Too Late written with Fred Tobias, reviews, opera, chamber music, and a range of classical pieces, were also composed by the industrious and prolific Strauss. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone has always embodied strength. He wasn't just the hero on the screen. He was the symbol of perseverance, of grit, of rising again after every fall. Rocky, Rambo, and so many more. These weren't just characters. They were reflections of a man who knew what it meant to fight, to struggle, to endure. But now, behind the muscles, behind the iconic voice and the stories of triumph, there is a quieter battle unfolding. His health is very poor, and the risk of further decline looms heavy. Time does not spare even the strongest. The man who once ran up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art now walks more slowly, more carefully. The pain, both physical and silent, lingers in the background. Those closest to him know the invincible image has faded, and the days grow more uncertain. The fighter remains, but the fight is harder now. Sylvester has always been more than a movie star. He has been a storyteller, a father, a man who wore his scars with pride. He inspired millions not because he was perfect, but because he was real. And now, as his health falters, that same spirit endures, not in fists or film, but in quiet strength and the love that surrounds him. The world watches with heavy hearts, remembering not just the hero, but the human being, the one who rode his way into Hollywood when no one would give him a chance, the one who turned pain into purpose and sweat into legacy. Now, as this difficult chapter unfolds, we hold Sylvester Stallone close, in memory, in admiration, and in prayer. He showed us how to keep going when everything says stop. And now, we send him that same strength back, with gratitude, with love, with hope that he feels, in every breath, just how deeply he is cherished.